if you think about it, every meme is a slide, is a presentation. They're just very compelling. When you have a good meme, it causes people to talk, it causes them to argue, it causes them to think, it causes them to question what they thought. If your slide library was a series of memes that caused discussion about your company, you might have the best sales, most entertaining sales force in the world.
Hey there, and welcome to yet another episode of the World of Presentations podcast, brought to you by us at Presentation Agency 356 Labs. We are not only, the company itself is not only developing and training people from some of the biggest brands in the world, and we're not only helping them how to prepare, design, and deliver truly effective presentations, but we also organize a conference that you may have heard about called Present to Succeed. I'm Boris, I'm the founder of 356 Labs, and I'm your host for today's episode. And today, for this one, I think this is, by the way, the first episode where we're going to have a guest who participated in a very interesting way in our first edition of the conference Present to Succeed. He was part of he and his company called Shufflr were one of our sponsors at Present to Succeed, and today, together with me, is James Ontra, who is actually the CEO of Shufflr. James, welcome to the podcast. We're finally doing this.
Thank you for having me here today.
Absolutely. Let's start with a question that you were asking me before we hit the record button that I need to probably ask you. Everyone in the presentation space has a very interesting and somehow strange story of how they ended up in the presentation world. You guys are building a software for the presentation world, a full-blown platform for the presentation world. How did that happen?
To give a condensed form, I've been doing this since the 90s when it was CD-ROM technology. And we became a consultancy, did a lot of high-end, touchscreen exhibits for Epcot Center and Walt Disney and ABC and British Airways and big companies, big global companies. So we were a high-end presentation company who did animations and video and things like that when that was way challenging for any laptop. So as a high-end consultancy, we got asked a lot of tough questions and a lot of design issues and a lot of structured storytelling issues that we helped implement and put through. With the at the time, we made little pieces of software to help support our efforts that made it better and better. But then YouTube came along and kind of democratized video. And we had a moment at ABC Television where there was one of our first clients, and they were reviewing their presentations, and one of the salesperson came in and they threw a DVD on the table and said, "Our family reunion was this weekend, and our grandmother made a better DVD than our sales pitch." It was biting. Wow. My heart dropped. Now, whether it was true or not, I can't tell you. I'm not criticizing it, but in a meeting like that with your client, it fell through the roof. So the concept of doing nice animations with the right colors and blending it in suddenly was valueless. However, they wanted to repurpose those slides. They said, can't we just drag this new easy video into a presentation, slide, video, slide, and have it just work? Sounds crazy, but that was challenging at the time. So we made a piece of software, called it PPT Shuffle. It was a basic slide library for PowerPoint. Upload it, it visualizes the slides. You see all the slides, you drag and drop to make new presentations. We worked with that, and it was successful for several years. It was an installed application, and it was a nice precursor to presentation management. But when devices came out in about 10 years ago at this point, the responsive programming and all that stuff made it imperative that we started from scratch and put all of the expertise that I've learned over 20 years in doing these presentations for all these best companies into a piece of software. Shufflr became that. Shufflr is effectively presentation management, which is corporate storytelling. Every presentation's a story,
Mm.
every slide a scene. When people can shuffle their scenes into new stories, you get better, more compelling, more compliant, more up to date, and more effective presentations for your global sales force.
All right, that is so well said. Let's
It's a
just
mouthful, I
dive
know
deep
that.
a little bit. Let's just dive deep a little bit in the
Great.
term presentation management, because I think that one is a key term here in the whole overall schema of things. Like because our listeners are people from the business world, so
Mhm.
consider in the same way as with the conference. By the way, the conference went crazy because we had almost 2,000 people joining us. And if you look at the split of the rows, it is mind-boggling. You know, the highest percentage in terms of the rate, in terms of the row of the person, is 14% for IT people, right? That's the highest. Then you
Right.
have 12% marketing people, 10% HRs, 10% learning and development, on and on and on and on and on. So we had this exactly the audience that we wanted, meaning the business people that
Mhm.
are being asked to present whether they like it or not. And this podcast is being listened to that same group of people. So how do they imagine, like when you're talking about presentation management, what are they seeing? What should they be imagining?
They should be the big change is the difference between I have a presentation on Thursday and it's for 30 minutes to this group of people and I've got 20 slides all crafted beautifully and I know what I'm going to say and I'm going to force the conversation by going from slide 1 to slide 2 and I'm on my own, I'm on my own silo. I might have called a friend who does good design or has some slides and borrow them. I spend a lot of time, I
Mm,
spend a lot of effort. 5 minutes before the meeting, I might get an extra slide on new information that I need to shove in there. And I do that. And I give my pitch and I exhale and say, where are we going to lunch? But next week,
yeah,
I get asked the same question to do a similar pitch. And I reach back to that original presentation and start there and go, God, where's that slide? I got it the last minute. That was perfect. Oh, it's on the laptop at the podium at wherever you were at the time.
yeah,
In a presentation management environment, you don't think of presentations as a one off event. You think of your presentations as a structured library of slides. Let's say you had 200 slides to do your whole corporate message: who we are, what we do, how we do it, case studies, and such. And to take anyone through it, it'd take 5 hours, but everyone would know everything. If you were able to publish those slides in an organized pitch where it's not one 250 slide presentation, but 25 10 slide presentations, one slide about us, one presentation about us, one about our locations, one about our products, one about our services, the case studies, you now have a structured library, a structured storytelling mechanism of your presentation library. And since we call it content management because when you upload a presentation or any file, it's formatted to present. What that means is a
mm,
PowerPoint, you see all 25 slides. You don't have to open it. Go to the next one, see all 25 slides. I like when I drag it into my shopping cart or my slide tray and hit save and I'm repurposing it. So I would never give 250 slide presentation, but I would pick and choose 10 or 15 slides, assemble them in 5 minutes, maybe add an agenda, a title slide, and be out the door.
yeah.
Because of that,
So
I'm
mhm,
managing a published slide library. And I'm going to take a step back, not to be wordy, but like presentations have been overlooked as a communication medium through centuries,
mm,
quite frankly.
yeah,
Do you know who David Ogilvy is? I know you're a young guy,
unfortunately,
Boris. All right. He's kind
no.
of the founder of the advertising industry. Ogilvy
All
Mather
right.
was the big, and he identified and sold to the corporate world that if you give him all your advertising, sales, marketing dollars, you'll get better creative, better placement, better strategy, and you in turn can sell more widgets. And the
Got it.
strategy was so good, the whole industry worked out beautifully. Advertising is a huge, huge industry. But what he did is he made strategies for TV, radio, billboard, print, and eventually the web. He wasn't there anymore, but the web came on. That's five mediums of communications. Let's look at
Yep.
TV. You can pick the Super Bowl, and you get a Hollywood star in an exotic location with a funny script, and now 15 seconds on the Super Bowl is worth $50 million or $5 million, whatever it is. I don't know. It's very high. That strategy over and over again has worked. I named 5 mediums of communications. The 6th medium is presentations. No one has ever managed them. No one has ever put a strategy behind presentation communication, and that's what presentation management is. If you think about presentations, I mean, drawings on cave walls were early presentations. Think of any religious institution, and most of them have stained glass windows that let the light come through and cause a slide to tell the message of their beliefs, so that you go through the stained glass and it tells the message so the illiterate folk can understand what they're saying forth. That was a form of presentation management. Ironically, build a new church, put up the slides, everyone's ready to go, the sun comes up, and there's the show. But as we've gotten further and everything, and along the way, for some reason, presentations have been a lone silo. They've never been managed as a communication medium. The ability to elevate the value of the slide to an actual scene, a storytelling in your corporate story. And when people look at that, a slide is no longer just bullets with text and stuff. Does it move you? Does it cause discussion? Does it make your customer emotional enough to jump and make the sale? Does it make the training audience get the messaging because you did it in such a compelling way? And when you use a system like this, you now have data of who used what slide in what order. So if Boris is the number one salesperson and James is the worst salesperson, Boris always talks about the benefits of our services and products, but James always talks about our history. Let's get James talking about our benefits. Maybe he will sell more too. But that type of strategy, much like David Ogilvy with the Super Bowl example, every year they learned how to make it better and better to the point they've squeezed so much value out of it. It's incredible. Presentations now have that ability. And if every presentation's a story and every slide's a scene, you should be managing and shuffling those scenes into new stories. And all of your sales force, whether you have 2 people or 20,000, are more compelling and more emphatic in their presentations.
Yeah, so it's all about, like, a lot of what you're saying is touching on the topic of, hey, let's make those presentations at the end of the day super effective, plus at the same time save time on it. Like, it
Correct.
sounds like that is
Well, in a
a
way,
huge
the very first thing is it saves time. And
yeah.
the second thing is, by publishing it, they become more effective over time, because when you give a presentation, you use a slide and you have feedback after it, it provides a feedback loop to make that slide better. International was so
All right.
blocky, I couldn't get to the point. And therefore, the people in marketing go, oh, it was, let me put an image there instead of the bullet. And now you have a relationship between sales and marketing that allows the consumer, the person who's giving the presentation, a feedback loop to the people who make the great slides. Because there is a between sales and marketing, and marketing, do it this way, and sales is like, I'll throw that presentation out if I get the contract. And they're both right. I hate to say it, but so you have to balance the two. You have to give them what you need.
So what does that mean? That, like, if you are aiming at repurposing presentations, and like the way you're saying that, hey, wait a minute, each and every presentation is a story and each and every slide is a scene, does that mean that if I want to repurpose some of those scenes and mix them, shuffle them a little bit, to create a new story out of it, does it mean that I can search for those slides, search for those
100%.
scenes, if you wish?
100%. Shufflr takes every bit of content in the presentations and puts it into the database. So if you remember that you wrote purple gorilla in the speaker notes of the slide 55 from last summer's barbecue presentation, you can type the word gorilla and filter right down a speaker note, and you're visually going to see the slide instantly where it is. It'll say slide 32 of this presentation, and you can just drag it and repurpose it if you want. The big thing is seeing the slide and repurposing it. Let me take a step back on it. Is I'm going to do an analogy here, is that all people don't like to be told to clean their room. They might like to have a clean room, but there's nothing worse than being told to go do it. And
All right.
people's presentations are a mess. There's marketing V1, marketing V2, last summer's presentation, James version 1, everything that's going on. And there's no way, it's very like no one needs to be told, clean your presentations, go clean your room. But if you had a system that said, we're going to help you do it. You don't have to clean your room, but just let's look in your room and you can see there's 5 pairs of pants on the floor. Pick your best pair of pants and bring it out, and we'll put it in the right place in your corporate story. You have 3 shirts on the
Mm,
floor. Pick your best shirt. You have 5 slides about the CEO. Pick the best slide and put it into the published library. Weed through the garbage. There might be duplicates about your Paris office that and some of them might say 100 people, one might say 120 because it's grown. This is a way to search Paris office. You will visually see the 5 slides that say Paris office. Say, let's weed through this one and put it in. So much like cleaning the room, we just send you in there, pick what you need, leave the stuff behind. It's always there in an archive if you need to search and hunt for it. But now you're publishing a library of slides that people use, that people repurpose it. And that's the key thing. And because they're not going copy and paste between PowerPoint and becoming a Mozart on the PowerPoint Mozart on their laptop, they just go to a site available in any browser and shop for slides just like you shop for items in Amazon. Drag them in your shopping cart, rearrange them and hit save. You have a new slideshow. The other thing that's more compelling here, and this is really important, is that this is the big change. The big change is the presentation no longer forces the conversation, much like preparing for a meeting. I have 10 slides. This is what we're going through. Now the presentation can follow the conversation. And what that means is you can prepare 5 slides, but at slide 4, if your client starts talking and said, wow, I didn't know you had a Paris office. Of course you do. And you can quickly pull up the slide to start addressing it, because I didn't know you also have a Paris office and our companies can work together. And that was serendipitous. But when people are talking, that type of stuff comes out. And if you know you have a slide on it, it can reinforce the conversation that says, hey, you're answering the client in real time with what's going on. This also works in training. Someone has a question
yeah.
and you're going through a process, and you realize that they don't understand the depth that is a precursor for the slide that you're talking about. Much, sometimes you need background information to get the whole concept. If you recognize that, you can quickly go, oh, we need to take an extra 2 minutes on this previous concept. They can jump to that other slide from another chapter in a different that was given last year, take 5 minutes of a refresher so your audience is up to pace, and then jump back into where you're going. This is where the presentation follows the conversation. It becomes more speaking, it becomes more human, if you will. A good example would be,
Yeah.
we do this right now and we don't even realize it. You've probably done it. You meet someone and you're talking with them and they go, man, my baby was born 4 months ago. And they start telling about their child. And at that same moment, you start thinking, wait, my child's 1-year-old. And as fast as you start talking 1-year-old, you're pulling up your phone, you're going through it, and you got a picture of your 1-year-old and say, see, this is in the crib. That is a presentation following the conversation. I knew in my picture library, my slide library, I had a picture of something that made us similar and had commonality. I rushed to get that to make our connection better. But more importantly, not more importantly, but within presentation management, when someone knows your corporate message, they know where those slides are, much like they remember the picture of you in Paris or with your child. And hence, the communication, the messaging, all of this stuff comes into a real live environment, where presentations have always been lectures prior to today.
Yeah. So how do you, like, all those examples are like super nice because I think they illustrate very well like what is possible nowadays, obviously with a little bit of help from outside. I can
Mm-hmm.
imagine that Shufflr is in this case, like you're saying, slides. Is that like probably the main integration here that we're talking about is PowerPoint, correct?
Well, every file is a potential slide. Every image is a slide. Every video is formatted as a slide. Sometimes the next slide should be a PDF of a government approval that says your product is approved by the government. And it's more compelling to just bring up the PDF as the next bit of information, because seeing the
Mm,
governmental approval is more compelling than me writing it on a slide that we're approved by the government. Um,
of course.
so any file type is formatted to present. If you think about it, every meme is a slide, is a presentation. They're just very compelling. When you have a good meme, it causes people to talk, it causes them to argue, it causes them to think, it causes them to question what they thought. If your slide library was a series of memes that caused discussion about your company, you might have the best sales, most entertaining sales force of the world.
Yeah, I mean that sounds very very interesting now, because if each and every object becomes like, if you can treat it as a slide, that means that you can bring it up in any moment, no matter of the format, and it's like you
Exactly.
have this creative library of things that all of them can be brought in any moment by any person in the organization with just a click of a button, more or less, depending on the audience, depending on the case, depending on the conversation that's happening, let's say, in front of those people or on that virtual call or whatever it is, which is
Exactly.
nice.
It's contextual. And because it's
Yeah.
coming from a library, this is the most important part. Because it comes from a singular central library, who's saying what to whom, when, and where. So when you use the system over a period of time, you suddenly have analytics of your most important slides, where people spent time, what they downloaded, what they presented live, what was shared, what wasn't, what was overlooked. We've had clients that put a lot of work into putting their ratings and numbers into presentations every week. And it wasn't until they had the real data that they realized all of that work wasn't necessary. The clients were selling at a higher level than the nuts and bolts of the numbers. The numbers were just
Mm.
a way to calculate the invoice, not a compelling issue to choose to advertise. And as such, they altered their use of slides, and presentation management became more of a strategy, became more business intelligence.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, with that, all of that being said, I'm just trying to think about, okay, wait, I can publish that presentation, I can publish that image, everything turns into a slide. But help me and help us understand here. We, as you mentioned, a group of 20, a group of 20,000, right?
Yep.
This is a large organization, a group of, let's say, I don't know, they're popping up in my head, HP, IBM, or whoever, like those big
Mm-hmm.
corporates, 200,000 people. All of them in one way or the other are being asked to present, like all of them, maybe per team, per row, whatever it is, like there are so many
Right.
presentation cases. First question here would be, because I'm trying to just imagine how this would work for a like huge organization, especially, like, first of all, is it like who can upload, right? Let's answer that one first. Like, is everyone allowed to upload? Because if that's the case, that would be a little bit of, it
No.
could become, okay, it
That
could
is
become
a
a problem.
critical
Who upload?
component, and you're pretty sharp for hitting on that. A critical component of presentation management is a publishing mechanism. So you have
Okay.
presentation people, which are generally marketing, who are charged with making the best slides, ensuring the best verbiage, ensuring it's compliant, ensuring that corporate may have looked at it. And then they make them available to people out in the field who can view them and pick them out of the cart. If I give the Amazon, some people are putting things in inventory, and the vast majority of us are going there and picking it out of the cart and buying it and getting it shipped. Same thing with presentation management. It's usually how it naturally grew up is and you probably know this, there's one person in almost every group and company who's good at PowerPoint, showed off their skills once, and then suddenly everyone in the company comes to them and starts saying, can you help me
Yeah.
here? I need some slides. Can you
The
help me?
hell. Yeah.
And then they get underwater because they've got so many requests to repurpose all the same slides in a slightly different format, and they have no way to manage it. That's one of the critical problems. The people with that issue come to Shufflr to get solved. Once they can organize those slides, and we have a system to bring them through, it's pretty straightforward. You collect up your last 60 days of presentations, 90 days of slides, put them in one location, drag them up to the site. It's called working. And then you pick and choose. The working folder is your dirty room. Go in there and let's pick and choose and organize a good structure based on all your slides. Let's weed through the duplicates. Let's get your best version of each messaging in there, get them into the right stories. And then when it's in a folder structure, who we are, what we do, how we do it, case studies, and then the presentations are about us and stuff, then you publish it for your users to consume. And that then creates that publishing mechanism, and it is based on permissions. So we track everything. So if someone spells something wrong, you're going to see it up there. But yes,
so
permissions are key to the publishing mechanism. Since this is publishing, much like a medium of communications that we're now publishing, it has a different authority. It has a different effect on the organization, and it has a different, how should I say, attention that needs to be given as a regular basis. Because if that's your public message that anyone can use at any time, you don't want something that is out of date. And therefore it's not a dumping ground for all your old marketing materials. So there's a natural friction between sales and marketing. Marketing being the person who gets asked to do all the presentations and all the marketing material, while the salespeople are the ones who consume it. Salespeople will notice that slide 55, the word international spelled wrong. The marketing person might have spelled it wrong. That could really happen. In this environment, the salesperson could quickly make a tab. Hey, you spelled presentation wrong or international wrong. And just like a post on Facebook, the person who made the presentation gets a message that, hey, slide 55, it's spelled international wrong. And you go, oh, I did. Because the system allows for slide updating, the person can open up the PowerPoint, make the change, re-upload it. It compares the two files and sees only one file is different. You accept that. And if 25 people had used that file otherwise and not noticed it, they all get a message that slide's been updated with a side-by-side comparison that says international's been changed. And they can just say, yes, accept, and their presentation gets updated.
Yeah. So again, as I was constantly thinking about all of the things that you were saying, I can already imagine that this person that you were referring to the person who is the, let's call them the PowerPoint guru, who probably is
slide library manager, the presentation manager.
Yeah, he becomes that slide library manager. And what's more, I think that not only they become that, and first, probably initially they would say, wait a minute, one more task for me? Really? But then I think that having in mind how often they're being asked to execute on stuff like that, they are going to say, wait a minute, that will, like, wait a minute, that will make sense. If I have one central place which I manage, all of those questions and all of those issues will forever stop, which will make so much sense.
Or there will be dropped down significantly.
Yeah. By the way, By the way, do you see with some of your biggest customers, do you see that slide manager role? Is that always, even with big organizations, one person, or how do you see that? How do you see them doing
it? It becomes a team. Like we have large banks as clients, and each and there's the central marketing team of 4 or 5 people, but each division, wealth management, retail, treasuries, have their own marketing department and their own owners of their own departments of their published slide library. If that makes sense. So depending how big the organization is, it can fracture into their own units. And if you think about it, it's a publishing tool. So these people not only realize that, wow, you're saving time and stopping people from calling me on Sunday night because the big meeting on Monday isn't finished and the salesperson for some reason wasn't prepared and now it's your fault.
Of
course. They not only get past that, but they also assume a role of a publisher. They are receiving information from the higher levels of the company because the company realizes that this is a communication tool and that the words written on these slides are being repeated by people out in the field. And as such, makes it that much more critical.
Yeah. And how does it, one last probably here, because you're already 30 minutes in, one last here, because I'm just kind of curious. And I think people will be like, okay, so how does that look inside of PowerPoint? Like what should I expect? Obviously, there is some central place where I can upload, or someone will be uploading all of that
It's
stuff for me, manage it for me. How do I like? Is there some experience inside of PowerPoint that I should
nope.
expect? Like what kind?
There might be in the future, but right now it is just a SaaS hosted website that makes it easier to upload PowerPoint. PowerPoint is the content creation tool. We have an editing tool that allows you to make small edits while you're in the field, text and images and stuff, but not smart art and animations and things. And yeah, you can start using it immediately. It's free for 10 users and under. So small
All right.
groups can get going and just start using it and getting the benefit of presentation management. And as your company grows or you use it, you get to 10 users, then it's worth $10 or $15 a user per month. 100 at that point, if 10 people are using it, that's worth it. No one wants to commit when you're thinking about it. Why do I have to commit to $100 a month to do that? But if you're already using it, it's successful. That's what we try to do. So we're making it available that way. It
Yeah,
is
that
available that way.
yeah, all right. Yeah, that's brilliant, by the way. Up until 10 people, it's completely free. Then it proves itself to be working very well. The people and inside of the organizations are like, wait a minute, we cannot even imagine the world right now without it anymore, right? Then it makes complete sense for any organization to just jump and just subscribe or pay for the monthly subscription or whatever. Is it a monthly subscription?
Monthly
How is
subscription per user
go
per
ahead.
month. There's two levels, $15 and $30 for the enterprise. You can
Yeah.
go to shufflrr.com, shufflrr.com, and
Yeah,
have a site set up in just a couple of minutes. It happens and it's no problem at all. And you can just drag up a whole folder of all your PowerPoint mess. It'll start processing and you can get into the process of weeding through the bad slides.
I cannot. I said that it will be the last one, but I cannot. I just have to ask you because there will be people who ask when you say dragging and uploading to a SaaS website. There will be somebody, especially in the corporate world, that's going to say, "Wait, wait, wait! Who said security here? What's going on? What about security?" There will be people that will say
All of our
security.
sites are yeah, all of our sites have your own personal URL. So yours would be presentation365.shufflr.com. So all no content is commingled. Secondarily, we pass all of the requirements for very big companies. Our companies that use it are Roche and Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines and NASA and US Bank and just very big companies. Starbucks uses it, Nestle uses it. Um, Huge companies. I can keep going on, but for some reason, so
Yeah,
we adhere to the highest ends of security, and we'll jump any hurdle that way
I think that if Roche are using Shufflrr, I
on a
mean
global
that's
scale.
clear.
Yes, yes,
I mean that's clear. It's over there because I know Roche very well, and I would say that
yes.
yeah, if they have, if you met their security compliance and all of that stuff, it's easy. It becomes
They've been a
easy.
client for several years, and they're an annual client with hundreds of users, and it could grow much bigger.
Got it. All right. We have, by the way, one question before we end each and every podcast episode. I don't know whether or not you have someone on top of your mind for that one, but let's try it out. We always ask who is the next guest that we should get on this podcast. What do you think? Somebody from the presentation world, or a business person that made an impression on you with something related to presentations. Just one name though. Anybody.
Um, uh, Eli
Hard question.
Cohen.
What's
Eli
the name?
Cohen. Eli Cohen. ELAYCOHEN. He is the CEO of a company called SalesHood. It's a sales enablement company, but he was one of the first employees at Salesforce and supported Mark Bynoff in selling. And quite frankly, it was based on presentation management. They just didn't know it at the time.
All right.
Meaning, meaning Mark Bynoff made sure that every single message that went out, any presentation, when he went on a stage to make a CEO address, every one of those slides, every salesperson in the group has already tested it pitched other salespeople, gotten sign off that they understood it and know it. So when he introduced it, the whole salespeople were all on the same page, talking to the clients on the same motion at the same time. And therefore, the messaging was consistent, on point all the time. And if you read his book, the first 4 pages are all about how intense he was about every digit on every slide. And I read it like, holy crap, that's going on. So in any case, I think it would be interesting for a different point of view from your traditional group.
Interesting. I wrote that down for sure. So we will try to reach out to him and see what happens there and whether or not we can
That's
bring him
fine.
in. Yeah,
And all you
absolutely.
have to say is and go find his book and read the first 5 pages. And if you say we're in presentations and I read that, you read it and make your own judgment. If you see that it isn't
Yeah.
relevant, then you're the expert. That's fine. I'm just giving you a little scent to sniff on, and if you find a bone to chew, go after it.
Yeah, for sure. One last here, you obviously said where people can find Shufflr, obviously double F double R for Shufflr and the website. But then the second part of the question is always related to, all right, they can find Shufflr and can experiment up to 10 people or whatever, unlimited, I would say, right? It's yeah, all right.
Yep, just goes on.
But
Yep.
what about them connecting with you, right? What is the best
We
network for them to connect
right
with you?
right through the site there's contact us and support once you're in there. We answer the phone, we answer support, we actually handhold any client who has any questions or comments to help structure their new library. They don't know that a good corporate story means it needs to be structured, and when it's structured everyone starts speaking better. We will help them through those steps, and we're 100% available. We say every site gets 4 hours free training, but quite frankly, if we teach you how to do it, you don't need us anymore and you're very effective. So it's in
Yeah.
our interest to make it work for you.
Of course. So your website is the central place for everything, I would say.
Correct.
That's
Yeah,
how
that's what we try to do that. That's very important.
that's how it sounds. Okay. I think that we need to come back with that topic, or I don't know, maybe a little bit of
Mhm.
presentation management again. But I would be super curious. You having so much experience in the presentation space, we just going live for another presentation podcast. Something happened. Let's see.
I'm sorry I fell off here. There's one other thing that I
Sure.
wanted to continue on. One of the most important things, if you're really making a SaaS business and you're defining a category, you should write a book about the subject so that people can sit down and fully digest what it means to adopt a new strategy and what the real goals are. Because to take the first steps, it seems kind of odd, but if you know the whole strategy and you articulate it, then you can fully bring people into it. So this book is available on Amazon, Presentation Management.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay, James. Again, we for sure we can speak about that topic for many many hours. That's clear. I think that
I
I
needed my straight up ad. I'm sorry I gave it to you. I was like, I forgot this on my last one. I need to do it.
yeah, and the interesting point, I will repeat that probably Tonya will cut here. That is, by the way, behind the scenes information for everybody listening. But still, there will be. I'm super curious to hear to join another podcast episode and just you talking about just presentations, for because you have such a experience
Mhm.
with so many industries, etc., and you have seen that space for so long. I would say it would be very interesting for you to just tell some stories of some huge failures that you have seen in the presentation space or some huge successes, what led to those successes,
Mhm.
on and on and on. Are you in for that idea?
Oh yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah, I'm
All right.
available. I'm happy to discuss the things. I think the value of experience should be shared, and it can help everyone in it. Because here's the deal: presentation management as a recognized profession and expertise will cause the value of everyone in this category, in this expertise, to go up, and everyone's work will be more valuable. It'll be more consistent. It'll be, quite frankly, you could be on retainer every month, just like a lawyer, to manage the all that stuff. When they have extra needs, the money goes up, and when they don't, you're still on retainer because it's a professional resource that the company has to manage.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. All right, so let's end this one here. Everyone who is listening, who is watching, all of the Shufflr's website will be part of the show notes. You can find it there. Obviously, it's also going to be part of the blog post coming with this podcast episode. Again, you heard it from James. Up until 10 people, it's completely free, so you can utilize the complete power of Shufflr for free up until you get to 10 users, which is quite nice, quite a good offering, I would say. And so whoever is listening to this one, check them out, check what they're doing, because obviously it's all about productivity plus at the end of the day effectiveness of the message, which is big deal in the world of presentations. Check them out. Check our website, also 356labs.com. And if you still don't know about the conference, which James mentioned at the beginning and I mentioned also, present2succeed.com, take a look at it. Hopefully you will see James, Shufflr, and many other presenters and people from the industry again in 2022, because we're planning something huge in 2022. Thanks again for listening.
And we'll be there.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for joining. Share this episode with a friend if you find it useful, and see you in the next one.
Great. Thank you, Boris.